And in a unanimous vote last week, the House passed legislation co-sponsored by Congresswoman Barbara Comstock that will require lawmakers and Capitol Hill staffers to undergo sexual harassment training. As this is all playing out, the Congresswoman, a Virginia Republican, joins us live. Good to have you back with us this morning.
Good to be with you, Shannon.
Or tonight. Let's talk about, you've got a hearing tomorrow, and you said that you don't know what you don't know about how wide this problem is. What do you hope to discover tomorrow?
Well, we are going to have witnesses from the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and our Office of Compliance, that was the office that would review these cases. And so we're going to hear from them on best practices, sort of like with the EEOC. They did a study last year where they looked at the whole problem of sexual harassment and found that it still is very pervasive throughout the workplace. That one of the things we know is that it's frequently not reported. But one of the things they have found is in-person training that really permeates and changes the culture, that really is embraced from the top down and really goes, throughout the whole system, that can change results and behavior and change the culture. So we want to get the best practices in place, really focus on the victims. We're going to be changing the law on how we treat the victims, put them on a level playing field, make it more victim friendly so they have a counsel or an advocate for them, because right now the system doesn't provide that. And then make sure we don't have taxpayer payments for any of this also. Well, and I'm pleased to report this has really been both bipartisan, really almost nonpartisan, and you've had the men be very, as well as the women in Congress, be very active on this. I know a lot of the focus, and you've just in the piece you showed, are the women speaking up, but the men feel strongly about it too, as do I, because we have so many of our good guys who I don't want to be, have associated with the bad behavior, and that's why we need to bring this out of the shadows, make sure these women are protected, and make sure it's a safe workplace for everybody, free of discrimination.
Well, and it's interesting because we talked about Blake Farenthold, a congressman out of Texas, is facing allegations, which he denies. He did engage in a settlement. He says he's now going to pay back the taxpayer money that was sent. Here's what he says now. I followed the rules, and the rules have strict confidentiality provisions in them designed to protect the victim. But they also protect the perpetrators, and that's the part that needs to be fixed. He has said that it's tough for him to come out and defend himself, but he says, both sides of this are bound by this confidentiality. Would you support legislation that will unmask the people who have had settlements and what the terms of those settlements were?
Yes, I do. And one of the things that we also support, though, is to look and make sure that the victims want to be able to come forward, because I think we have to protect the victims. And
Absolutely.
If they want to come forward and they want to unmask this, and in any way we can make people have to pay back. But I think we need to make sure that it is something that the victims will go forward on, which in a number of these cases they have, with Conyers and with Congressman Farenthold. They've come forward to talk about their situations.
And that should be their decision, I mean, frankly, as being victims or alleged victims in many of these cases, because there are denials from Congressman Farenthold and many of the other men who've been accused. To that point, Senator Kennedy, a Republican out of Louisiana, had this to say tonight as we wait for a decision from Senator Franken. Here's Senator Kennedy.
There's an old saying, the truth will set you free, but sometimes it'll make you feel like hell in the first place. And a lot of people have been made to feel like hell because those who had or have power over them sought sexual gratification through the use of that power, and that's wrong. And in terms of Senator Franken, he's going to have to make his own decision.
So, of course, a number of Democrats today, men and women, there's this growing chorus that he needs to go. He'll make his own decision tomorrow. We'll get that announcement. But where do you think we draw the line? Because there are allegations against Democrats and Republicans, people who are elected, people who are running. Where do you say we have enough evidence that it's time for them to go or to drop out of a race, or say, listen, we need some due process for these people. These cases are all different. We need to, hear from everybody involved and make an educated, informed decision?
Well, I think what's happened and what's really made this a watershed moment is these cases that have come up, you've had numerous allegations. It's not a one-off situation. You have sort of predatory behavior, whether it's a Matt Lauer, which is the stories coming out on that are truly horrifying. And you see how he used his position of power, because sexual harassment isn't so much about sex as it's about power and misuse of power. So that's why we really need to, take this kind of action quickly and understand that Congress Congress, just like everybody else, has to live by the rules. And what we've seen in the workplace for years, one of my colleagues who worked on labor law said, he would go into the board of directors and say, we've investigated this, the CEO has to go, or whoever else. And so we need to do the same thing in Congress. Now, if they want to drag it out and do an ethics investigation, like with Senator Franken, I called for him to, resign, I guess, weeks ago when it first came out, because I don't think we should waste the taxpayers' resources on those investigations either, particularly when you have serial abuse by whether it's Congressman Conyers or Franken, or any of the other people who've come up. And I've been consistent on all of these. I've said, when you have serial abuse and you see it time after time, there's patterns of behavior. Predators behave in a similar pattern. Like you heard with Charlie Rose, where they said, oh, did he use the shower trick? Or did he do this? And you're seeing people who didn't know each other come up with the same stories. Those things ring true. Now, if they want to come out and defend themselves, they have that right. But I think what we're seeing is we want Congress to have to live by the rules of everybody else, certainly no taxpayer dollars involved, and a new system that will protect the victims and, most importantly, stop this in the first place.
Yeah, regardless of party, we need to be consistent,
exactly.
all of us.
And that's what we've had, support from Republicans and Democrats alike, men and women, and that's the change here, and that's the watershed that we have to make some fundamental changes.
We like to see that on the Hill, when they can unite around something that's positive change. Congresswoman, thanks for coming in again.
Thank you.